You know that little blue, white, and gold logo? I mean, you see it everywhere, right? It's on billions of cards and countless digital wallets. But what's really going on behind that familiar brand is a financial network of a scale that is almost impossible to imagine. And in this explainer, we're going to pull it apart and see how it works. Think about it. You tap your card or your phone to buy a coffee and poof, it's approved. It feels instantaneous, almost like magic. But it's actually this incredibly complex, high-speed process that spans the entire globe. So today, we're pulling back the curtain, using Visa's own 2024 annual report to see how it all comes together. All right, first things first, to really get what Visa is, you have to wrap your head around its sheer scale. The numbers are, and I'm not exaggerating, absolutely staggering. They show that Visa isn't just a credit card company, it's more like a fundamental piece of the global economy's infrastructure. Okay, let's start with this number, $15.7 trillion. In fiscal year 2024 alone, that's how much money moved through Visa's networks. To put that into perspective, that's more than the annual GDP of most countries on Earth. It's just an unbelievable amount of value flowing through their digital pipes in just 1 year. And how did they get to that crazy number of nearly $16 trillion? Well, it was made up of over 233 billion individual transactions. Every time someone bought something, withdrew cash, or made a digital payment, it added to this absolutely colossal figure. So who's making all these transactions happen? Well, that would be the 4.6 billion Visa payment credentials out there in the world. We're talking cards, digital accounts, the whole shebang. That's more than 1 for every 2 people on the entire planet, connecting billions of us to millions of businesses. And to break that down even more, because this is just nuts, Visa processes nearly 640 million transactions every single day. By the time you finish your first cup of coffee in the morning, Visa has already handled tens of millions of payments all over the world. Okay, so the scale is massive, we get it, but how does Visa actually make money? This is where a huge, and I mean huge, misconception comes into play. So let's just get one thing straight right off the bat. Visa is not your bank. The bank that gave you your card, that's who lends you money and charges you interest. Visa's job is completely different. They operate the network that connects everybody. They call it the four-party model, and it's really the heart of their entire business. The easiest way to think about it is this. Visa is the world's financial plumber. They built and maintain the sophisticated pipes and technology that let money flow securely and instantly from your bank to the store's bank. And this right here is what that plumbing looks like in action, all in the 2 seconds it takes to tap. When you pay, the merchant's bank sends a signal through Visa's network, which is called VisaNet. VisaNet instantly zaps that request to your bank gives the thumbs up, and that approval flies right back across the network to the merchant. It's an incredible symphony of data happening in a blink. And this is how they get paid for being the master plumber. They earn money in a few key ways. There are service fees just for using the Visa brand. Then there are data processing fees for every single one of those transactions that zips across their network. And of course, international fees when you use your card abroad. Every step in that payment journey generates a tiny fraction of a cent for Visa. So a business model built on taking a tiny slice of a massive, massive pie, it sounds great in theory, right? But how does that actually play out in their financial performance? Let's take a peek at Visa's 2024 report card. And yeah, the results are pretty stunning. You can see really healthy double-digit growth in revenue, income, and earnings per share. But here's what's really amazing. Their profit grew way faster than their revenue. That just screams efficiency. It shows you how incredibly scalable their network is, leading to profit margins that most companies can only dream about. A strong company performance is one thing, for sure. But what does that mean for someone who actually invested in the company? How does Visa stack up against the broader market? Well, this chart really tells the whole story, doesn't it? The power of their business model is crystal clear. Over the last 10 years, if you had invested in Visa, you would have seen a return of 453%. That's nearly double the S&P 500 over the same time. That's a story of consistent, market-beating growth. Okay, so after that kind of incredible performance, the obvious question is, where does the growth come from next? I mean, how do you keep that up? Well, Visa's report lays out a very clear 3-part strategy for the future. First, there's still a huge runway in their core business, consumer payments. There's still a ton of cash and checks in the world that they want to make digital. Second, and this is where it gets really interesting, is what they call new flows, moving into payments between businesses and from governments. And third, they're building out all these extra value added services, like fraud protection and data analytics. And this slide just shows you the insane scale of these opportunities. The market for replacing cash and checks is a massive $20 trillion a year. Huge, right? But then you look over at the market for new flows, and it's 10 times bigger. $200 trillion. Let that sink in. That is the estimated annual volume of payments moving between businesses, from governments to citizens, and across borders. Basically, all the money that doesn't get spent at a retail checkout counter. This is the new frontier that Visa is aiming to conquer. So how exactly do they plan to capture a piece of that $200 trillion prize? It all boils down to their core vision for the future of payments. Their ambition is to become a network of networks. Think about that. They want Visa to be the single, universal plug for moving money, from anywhere to anywhere, regardless of whether it's on their own network, a rival's network, or even a new blockchain network. As their CEO, Ryan McInerney, puts it, the company's purpose is to be the best way to pay and be paid. It's a really simple mission statement, but it perfectly captures that grand network of networks ambition. So, as we move deeper into a future where money is less about physical paper and more about digital code, these invisible networks that move the code become more powerful than ever. And it leaves us with a really fascinating question. When it's all said and done, who ultimately gets to write the rules for the global economy?